Tuesday, June 24th, Edward R. Roybal, Public Works Room. There are several items on the agenda today, so appreciate your cooperation. Just in terms of housekeeping, as you can tell, the acoustics are not the best in this room. So if you need to have a conversation, please take it outside. We appreciate that very much. When you come up to the microphone, there'll be a 2-minute clock that hopefully I can also see. Barbara, there you go. Barbara has it in her hand, our city clerk. So if you wrote a very nice letter, we want to read it, but if it takes longer than 2 minutes, I just highly recommend you get to the main point of your letter. If something's been stated and you come on up and there's really not much else you want to add, it's okay to say, I agree with the previous speaker, or if you want to add something new and or different, we would appreciate that. When you do come on up, give us your name and your address. And if you speak into the microphone, we can hear you clearly. When you step away, you can see how easy the voice just kind of disappears. So we appreciate your cooperation there as well. As my colleagues make their way down to committee, perhaps what we'd like to do is start off with our Director of Planning, Gail Goldberg, for her report. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I wanted to report today a bit on our outreach for our community plan process. We are continuing to have a lot of meetings with communities around the community plans, and last week had 2 important meetings, one in Sylmar where we had almost 100 people come to talk about the efforts that we put forward on the community plan and to participate. And this past Saturday, we spent the morning with Council Member Parks and his Community Plan Advisory Committee, the first meeting of those folks in South LA. So we are continuing to work hard on the community plans and continuing to invite the public to participate and be a part of the creation of those plans. I also wanted to report on the managed hiring process, which I often am here complaining about, to let you know that we just had 11 positions freed up from the managed hiring process, so we will be in the next few weeks bringing on board or doing some promotions for at least 11 positions, and I think that it will provide some relief for our case processing and our community plans. But we still have a lot of vacancies that we are working with, and we are very hopeful that we will get even more positions freed up in the very near future. Okay. And finally, I wanted to report that the Planning Department has successfully filled our last Deputy Planning Director positions, and we are very, very pleased that beginning last week, Vince Bertoni, who was serving as the Community and Economic Development Director of Beverly Hills, was formerly the Planning Director there, has joined our staff. Vince has served as Planning Director for several California cities. He is currently head of the California American Planning Association and is very well known in planning circles, and we are very, very pleased to have him join our staff. And I'd like to invite him to the microphone for a moment, if he will make his way to the microphone.
All right.
And if Vince, if you would like to tell us a little about you, and you've been here for a week and you continue to come back.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you, Gail, and Councilmember Reyes and Councilmember Huizar. Thank you very much for having me here this afternoon. It's an honor. I've been a planner for over 20 years, and I've actually been director in 3 cities, as Gail's mentioned, and I can tell you I've never been as excited about a job as I have been about this one in Los Angeles.
If you don't mind just speaking into the microphone a little bit closer, we'll hear you even better.
Sorry. Is that better?
Yes, much better.
Just to say that my 20 years as a planner, I've never been as excited as I have been to come here to Los Angeles. I think this is an amazing time to be in Los Angeles. It's such an incredibly diverse and vital city that's undergoing such transformation as a city, as an urban place, and I'm thrilled to be part of that. So I just wanted to thank you, and I'm sure I'll be seeing a lot of you in the future.
Great. I first want to welcome you to Los Angeles. I'm glad you're here. But let me put you on the spot for a second.
Okay.
Because we're going to hear this. We're going to hear this. You're talking to a council member who represents the 1st District. 40% of my communities are at or below poverty. My transit dependency levels are extremely high. A lot of the ridership in our bus lines actually originate from the core of the city. We have challenges with our parks, transportation, our struggle with housing. And then we hire a manager or person from Beverly Hills. So in terms of engaging these issues, our ability to engage the great diversity and all the challenges this great city has, both at the high end of the economic spectrum to the low end, because everyone's property is important, everyone's rights are important. How would you respond to that in terms of bringing in diversity, in terms of addressing these economic issues? I mean, they're going to put you on the spot. Might as well start now.
That's a very good question. That's a very fair question for someone who's just coming from Beverly Hills. Actually spent most of my career in other communities that were a little bit more diverse than Beverly Hills. When I was in Santa Clarita, one of the things I was charged with is working with the Newhall community, which is an area that is largely transit dependent, largely lower income. And it was an interesting challenge. It was an interesting proposition for me because it was an area that as planners, and as you know, as planners, we talk a lot about mixed use and mixed communities. We had a mixed use and thriving community in that area, and where people lived, worked, and shopped all within walking distance. They happened to be of a lower income level. And the challenge there was, how do we reinforce that, and how do we bring that all together, and bring in the additional amenities that we need in that area to help that community thrive, which was actually, in that particular case, it was you had that diverse, mixed community that was very walkable, but what we didn't have was the adequate housing stock that we needed. We didn't have the adequate recreational opportunities. So what we did in that particular case was actually worked in creating great streets and great connections for the neighbors, and actually we worked on some programs to actually help in terms of housing assistance, and brought in a recreational, a really great rec center in that area that's actually now used by residents in northern Los Angeles as well as that area. I think that's really crucial and vital, and that's an issue that I've worked on not just in the cities, but as some of my roles in the state as not only president of the California chapter of the American Planning Association, but I was also on the board of the League of California Cities. So I've worked a lot on housing issues, worked heavily in housing issues actually in the state in terms of bringing in more affordable housing throughout California. So.
Right. And I appreciate that answer. As I look at our ability as a city to lessen these pressures, and in some places that breaking point, because of the circumstances, the people that are there, how they're living, and then you have in the very wealthy areas where you have seniors who are having hard. So the pressure points are throughout the city. So what strategies we can implement will hopefully benefit us as long as we're proactive in our planning process. So I appreciate what you're saying. Councilman Huizar is a former school board president for the LA Unified School District, and comes with a very strong sense of community as well. And I want to ask him if he had any other comments.
Sure. No, I agree with Mr. Reyes that as we look forward to continue to plan this city, and I appreciate Ms. Goldberg coming as a director. She's done a tremendous job in taking us to a position where we will do more real planning, and I think we have to do that with recognition of the diversity of the city and the demographics and the different income levels. And as the city has been planned historically, it was at the expense of some low-income areas where we put some facilities and other items that wouldn't necessarily be thought of to be put in some of the parts of the city. So I think what Mr. Reyes is raising is just that we all need to be cognizant of how we continue to plan the city, and that all voices are heard. But I want to congratulate you not only for your new position, but you are the first person since I've been in this committee for 2 years to get an applause as Ms. Goldberg announces somebody, so congratulations for that. You must have a lot of family members here, or your colleagues really like you, but either way, congratulations, and we certainly look forward to working with you. I think we are at a very exciting time in the city of Los Angeles, and your excitement to be here, part of your job is to have the excitement for what we're doing, and it's already there, so we look forward to working with you.
Thank you.
Well, thank you so much, and look forward to meeting with you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, and I will just conclude that that Vince does have a lot of friends because he has been so active in the American Planning Association that and a real voice for mentorship for young planners, which was important to me. But I think that it also I would remind folks that coming from Beverly Hills, which I have to point out is a much more lucrative place to work than the city of Los Angeles is. I think that it says something about Vince's values that he chose to do real planning over perhaps a more lucrative career path. So we are grateful that he's here. Thank you.
Oh, absolutely. Thank you again, and we look forward to a very productive relationship. Okay, so because we start, maybe we should just go through the consent items and move through the agenda and see what we can move. And my understanding that, okay, I've got my cards there.
On number 8, you have plenty of cards. The only cards you have are number 1 speaker cards on 1 and 8.
1 and 8 are the only ones. Okay, great. So that being said,
I also have one on 2 that was submitted.
so, okay, 1, 2, and 8. We have speaker cards, we'll call those special. 3, we could receive and file. 4, we could approve the planning department's recommendation to initiate plan amendments and zone changes to address the intent of the motion. 5, 6, and 7, we can move on consent. 8 is special, 8 A and B. 9, we just heard the director's report. And 10, we don't have a special report. So that takes us to number 1, Roberto.
Yes, Councilman. Item 1 is a motion, Rosenthal Cardenas. It's directing Building and Safety to convene a construction work, an excavation work task force. And the departments that will be participating in the task force will be LAPD, Building and Safety, City Attorney, Public Works, and Engineering. And I believe you can refer this to staff.
Okay. Before we do that, we do have a card from Ms. Blumenfeld. Whitney Blumenfeld.
Good afternoon, council members. Whitney Blumenfeld, Councilman Bill Rosendahl. One quick comment. We've heard from LAUSD, who's expressed interest in being a part of this task force, and we'd like to accommodate that request.
Now, who again?
LAUSD.
Okay. Sure we can create a space at the table.
Yes.
All right.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, you're welcome. So that being said, we can adopt refer to staff, and they'll be convening a construction excavation task force for all the noise that happens when we build things. All right. That'll be the order of this committee. Our next item, Roberto?
The next item, Councilman, is a motion, Cardenas Reyes is instructing the Planning Department with the assistance of the City Attorney to write an amendment to the baseline mansionization ordinance.
Right. And I know we've spent a lot of time on this issue, but we do have 2 cards, and I'm glad they're here. We have Daniel Skolnick, who is representing District 6. Do you have a card?
Actually, if I could allow the community member to speak first.
Okay. Well, let's have the staff do the report, that we have something to comment too, right? That's what you'd like to hear?
Pardon?
You want to hear the staff report first? Is that what I'm hearing?
Councilman, there's no staff report. It's simply a
Right.
motion.
Okay, so we're going to refer.
I want to allow the community member or stakeholder to speak.
Would you rather speak? Okay.
First, and I'll-
Joan Lux, that's fine. Joan Lux, come on up. This is item number 2. That's quite all right.
Thank you very much. My name is Joan Lux. I'm president, and speaking as president of the Federation of Hillside and Canyon Associations. This was a motion that was made by Councilman Cardenas to increase the amount of square footage on garages from 400 to 600 feet not to be counted as part of the baseline manchinization ordinance. I recommend and ask that this issue be referred to the Planning Department for a report and come back to Plum with the following notation. This is nothing more than an extra 200 feet to be counted as living space. There is no way that three-car garages in most of the city area is going to be used for garages. This is a developer's way to add 200 feet more, and the original 400 feet should have been counted. So I ask this to be referred to the Planning Department, not to be approved. It is totally egregious, and it just is adverse to the theme that you all have with the baseline manchinization to make it smaller. The relationship between house and lot is 77% if you add this 200 feet. You'll have no room to mitigate, no room to plant anything. And the whole purpose of the manchinization ordinance is to have it fair, but to make it compatible with the neighborhood. Thank you very much for your time.
Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Lux. Barbara, would you mind moving the clock a little bit more so we can see it on this side as well? There you go. That's fine. Okay. Thanks, Barbara. Okay, Mr. Skolnick.
Thank you, council members. Daniel Skolnick, Planning Deputy for Councilman Tony Cardenas. And I just want to bring up a few statistics. There clearly is a growing demand and need for garages that exceed 400 square feet. The Census Bureau statistics
Ms. Skolnick, would you mind speaking into the microphone a little bit closer?
Sure. Census Bureau statistics confirm this trend, and according to the Bureau statistics, parking facilities for new one-family homes completed in the area defined as West in from 1992 were 20% of new homes, had 3 or more garage spaces, and the trend has been increasing, whereby in 2007, 31% of new homes had 3 or more garage spaces. While major efforts have been made to reduce the necessity of automobile use, the majority of Southern California is auto-oriented and will remain auto-oriented for a significant amount of time. The Planning Department recognizes the citywide variations in demand and impacts for auto storage, which is why our advisory agency parking policy for multifamily dwellings already requires more than 2 parking spaces per unit for new construction. According to 2005 U.S. Census data, of 1.6 million workers over the age of 16 in Los Angeles, 25% live in households with 3 or more cars. 3-car garages reduce the impacts of new single-family development by providing needed off-street parking. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. I'd like to submit that to the committee and the formal letter, Mr. Skolnick, so that we can have your statistics for the staff. Thank you. Sir.
Yeah, I'm comfortable sending this for a report back, but before we amend this ordinance, I want to make sure that we are careful in how we are approaching any amendments to this ordinance, because it's an ordinance, as you know, Mr. Reyes, and you were a strong supporter, that took a long time to get where we are, and I certainly don't want it to lose its integrity one amendment at a time. So, and I foresee that there might be a lot of temptation for us to do that for those who weren't necessarily comfortable with the end result. But I would warn that we should be aware and conscious not to allow this ordinance to lose its integrity, chipping away at it. So just a word of caution.
I appreciate that very much, Councilmember. Okay, our next item, Roberto.
So the action is to refer
to the Planning Department and the City Attorney's Office.
The next item, Councilman, is item 4. It's a report from the Planning Department relative to an analysis of non-conforming land uses along Monte Vista Street and Highland Park. And this is in response to a motion, Reyes-Perry.
Well, okay. We already processed that one. Yes.
Okay. So the next item, Councilman, would be item 8. It's an appeal by EMI Music North America and also by Mr. Jim McQuiston. He's appealing the approval by the CPC of a site plan review and the certification of an EIR, and as it relates to the demolition of an existing building and construction of a mixed-use building at 6230 Yucca Street and CD 13. And item 8B is the related zone change and height district change.
Okay, well, let's hear from the staff first. Let's get the staff report.
Good afternoon, subcommittee members. I'm Linda Smith with the Los Angeles City Planning Department. The items before you are a zone change request and an appeal of that request, of the environmental document related to that request. With regard to the zone change and height district change request, on December 13th, 2007, the City Planning Commission approved the zone and height district change for the subject site. The basis of that change was to amend an existing delimitation or development limitation on the site, which effectively limited the FAR that could be developed on the site. The approval of the new delimitation basically brings the site and the project in conformance with the existing community plan, Hollywood Community Plan. The Commission also approved a site plan review request on the site and denied an adjustment on the site which would have allowed for reduced yards. It was determined that the adjustment is not necessary. The code allows this type of project, a mixed-use project that has commercial and residential in conjunction, to be allowed with the setbacks at a minimum rate. In response to testimony presented at the Commission meeting, testimony that was presented by EMI or the representatives, the City Planning Commission adopted additional conditions of approval. Basically, the first condition required that a noise and vibration expert be on site at all times to assist during the construction phase. The intent of this condition was basically to allow the expert to monitor for any potential long-term effects and to promote best practices with regard to construction activities that are related to noise and vibration. In addition, the Commission approved a condition of approval limiting all demolition and construction activities to before 4 o'clock on Monday through Friday and prohibiting any construction and demolition activities on Saturdays. One third and important condition that the City Planning Commission also required is that the project be in conformance with any of the LACRA's requirements for redevelopment in the area. It's staff's understanding that the applicant has worked directly with EMI through the guidance, or with the guidance, I should say, of the council office. The result of these meetings basically are a set of supplemental mitigation measures, basically that would amend the existing EIR. The applicant's representative is here and available and will go into those measures in detail. If you have any other questions, though, with regard to the zone change or the other processes here, I will be available to answer those questions for you. Thank you.
Linda, not so fast, not so fast. Let me ask you, in Planning Commission, how many times did we have a public hearing regarding this?
There were actually 2 public hearings. Yes. As the hearing officer, I conducted the first public hearing. A second limited public hearing was also held at the Commission meeting on December 13th.
And how long did the public hearings last?
I don't have an exact time. I would like to say an hour.
In terms of hours, days?
I'd like to say an hour or so for the first meeting, for the meeting that I held. For the Commission meeting, it was probably a half an hour to an hour of discussion on this case as well.
So the hearing and discussion was about an hour in the Commission?
I would say about an hour, yes, at the Commission meeting.
I just want to make sure that the folks that are here understand that this topic has been discussed, and I want to put that for the record as well.
That is correct.
Okay. Well, we have some healthy stacks of cards here, and well, let's start with the appellant or appellants, and then from there we'll take on the rest of those who filled out speaking cards. So, excuse me. So on the record we have appeals filed by EMI Music North America, My understanding is Maureen B. Schultz is representing, and Jim McQuestion as well. So, Mr. McQuestion would like to come on up and give us the nature of your appeal.
Jim McQuestion. I put in a pretty complicated appeal. There are 9 separate points, any one of which would really send us back for a little more work. And I do want to discuss the 9 points. I've put them all in a series of 3 submissions to you. The third one is especially disturbing because of course, I'm an alumnus of California Institute of Technology, and we just had our alumni seminar in which an 18-story building was analyzed, which actually exists on Canoga Avenue. And there was a movie showing that building in a San Andreas fault earthquake. Now, San Andreas is miles away. That building rotated and fell down. That movie is available on the website, which is in that report, and I urge everybody to look at it. It scared me to pieces because that building was approved by the City of Los Angeles, and it was approved by the Department of Building and Safety. And in this report, it says, even though the code has been increased, it is not sufficient to guarantee the safety of people, even in a San Andreas fault earthquake. There happens to be, in one of my other reports, you'll notice, there is an existing fault which everybody expects to break at any time with a 7.2 earthquake. 7.2 with 6 feet of ground movement. Hollywood is going to be practically demolished. We are all scared to death of that, scared to death. We have figured that residences will be affected more because the earthquakes usually happen when people are at home. And if it's a business, they won't be in the businesses. So I want you to look at these 9 points. They're all more or less legal points. As a civil rights lawyer and as a professional engineer, I'm saying that this is something that needs to go back for more study. We want the City of Los Angeles to be built up. We have to have 2 Chicagos in here by 2030. And I'm a strong supporter of building up the City of Los Angeles, but we don't want the liability of the city. As you well know, I'm supposedly the 6th member of the Budget Finance Committee, and that's one of my big concerns, is that we do things responsibly. We passed the buck. The planning department says this is up to building and safety. The building and safety people say it's up to the planning department. We don't have a good policy on these that are built right over expected strong earthquake fault seisms.
Thank you, Mr. McQuestion. Okay, our next appellant, please. Representing EMI, I believe.
Sorry, I didn't understand. My name is John Whitaker. I'm a partner with the law firm of DLA Piper, the attorneys for Capitol Records, LLC, and its parent, EMI Music North America. We have submitted a letter to the committee this morning supplementing the record in support of our appeal and objections to this project. I have extra copies of the letter if anyone would like them. Are they in the record? Have you had a chance to read them?
I'd like to see the letter before I say it's in the record.
The developer's attorney advised us today that a determination has been made on the track map with respect to which we did not file a timely appeal. We believe we did timely file an appeal to all that was decided at the City Planning Commission. To our knowledge, no one at Capitol Records received notice of a further determination, even though request for all such notices was requested by Capitol Records. Thus, we reserve the right to appeal any such new determination on the basis of a failure to receive notice. In addition, it is now too late. If it is now too late to appeal the determination on the track map, we believe that new information which has been provided since the preparation of the EIR requires that a supplemental EIR be prepared. Further, the addendum prepared for Plum is not appropriate because the information shows new impacts and mitigation measures which have not been agreed to by developer. The cultural importance of the Capitol Records Tower and the uniqueness and importance of the Les Paul designed echo chambers that sit underneath the parking lot between the tower and the property line of the developer are described in detail in our letters and further substantiated in letters which have been submitted to you from artists, composers, sound engineers, and others who have used the Capitol Records recording studios. We have noted that several letters of which Capitol Records received copies are not on the file's website. Thus, I am submitting copies into the file to the extent that they're not already there. Capitol Records is not anti-development, but Capitol Records' ability to continue to use these echo chambers without interruption is absolutely critical to the continued viability of the company. When the Planning Commission approved this high-rise condominium project with 3 subterranean levels of parking, Capitol Records filed its appeal and retained the Los Angeles Economic Development Corporation to prepare the study which is attached to our letter which was submitted this morning. It is clear from the LAEDC study that if Capitol Records is forced to cease operations as a result of the project, which could happen if the interruption is only for a few months, this would not only be damaging to Capitol Records, but would be damaging to the larger community as well. Greg Freeman from LAEDC will speak in more detail about the conclusions in the LAEDC study. It is unfortunate.
Please continue.
It is unfortunate that we are here today because all of these conflicting interests could have been resolved if the CRA had continued with its original plan to master plan the remaining undeveloped parcels on the block. This is the city's last chance to continue with the master plan concept for the block. Once this project is approved, the opportunity will be forever lost to develop a mixed-use, aesthetically pleasing project on the block which contains housing, office, and retail with a subterranean parking structure located as far as possible from the echo chambers. Capitol Records has spent in excess of $100,000 attempting to work with 2nd Street to agree upon supplemental mitigation measures which can hopefully protect Capitol Records' ability to continue operating its recording studios and echo chambers during the construction period and following completion of construction. The developer has been responsive to most of our concerns, and the language of the supplemental mitigation measures is now being finalized. Supplemental mitigation measure 22 requires that the contractor, quote, promptly take all necessary measures to identify and modify the activity causing the interference so that the interference ceases and the recording session may continue without further delay. Capitol Records is concerned that if the developer's contractor does not comply with this critical mitigation measure, its only recourse will be to seek assistance from the city's Building and Safety Department, which could be problematic at best and most likely a substantial delay. We have proposed several options which would give Capitol Records comfort that there will be compliance by the developer with these conditions, but we have not been able to reach an agreement because these are mitigation measures and not contractual measures. The key component to any such agreement must include direct monetary compensation to Capitol Records in the event of a violation of the mitigation measures. As we explained in our letter, there is terrific exposure to Capitol Records if there are interruptions of recording sessions. Capitol Records executives in New York are reluctant to keep open the recording studios and the echo chambers in the event that they face this potential tremendous exposure to artists and their recording companies. If a session is interrupted, it cannot be continued. They miss a release date on their record. There's many things that can happen that would cause enormous damages that wouldn't ordinarily be applicable to a project located adjacent to a development site. Accordingly, for the reasons set forth in our appeal and in our supplemental letters and attachments, we respectfully request that this committee recommend to Council that this project be disapproved. We have a few speakers prepared to speak today. We also request that this committee hold open the public hearing so others will have an opportunity to speak at the Council hearing next Tuesday. Thank you very much. Are there any questions?
Not at this moment. Any questions, Councilmember? Okay. Okay, so we've heard from both appellants on this case. Just give me about a few minutes, I'll be right back.
We're going to call for a recess for about 3 minutes. Thank you.
Continue here, I can start dancing. All right. All right, folks. All right, well, thank you for your cooperation. We have quite a few cards here. So I'd like to do, otherwise we'll probably be here all afternoon. We'll go with 1 minute per speaker. Barbara, 1 minute per speaker. And we'll call your name. Please come on up and give us your name and address just for the record. We'll start off with, I'll call up 3 or 4 names. You're welcome to come on up. Les Brockman, Evan Gochner. Okay. Okay, before the general public, that's good advice. The applicant, would the applicant like to speak first? Come on. Give us your name, please, and address.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Kristen Launer from Sorrell Associates. Thank you for listening to us today regarding the project at 6230 Yucca Street in Hollywood. After myself, R.J. Comer from Armbruster Goldsmith will also be presenting. And with us, if you have any questions, are David Jordan of 2nd Street Ventures, Stephen Ehrlich of Stephen Ehrlich Architects, our sound and vibration expert, Jim Nelson, and our construction expert, Steve Pellegrin, if you have any questions. To begin, I would like to orient you to the project site. Our site is at the southwest corner of Yucca and Argyle, where currently there's a dilapidated empty office structure. In addition, it should be pointed out that we are diagonal on the same block from Capitol Records. Our location has the benefit of being down the block from a red line station, as well as being among many projects revitalizing the Hollywood community, including the Whole Foods Project, the Claret Project, the W Hotel, and the adaptive reuse of the old Broadway building. It is truly an exciting time in Hollywood. This project began almost 3 years ago when we presented it to the council office and began our community outreach process. This developer found it very important to meet with many groups and individuals and did just that. In going through this process, we were able to put together a strong package of community benefits, including allowing our office parking to be used after hours and on the weekends for public parking, participating in a local median beautification project, elimination of a previous proposed tall wall on the building, participation in an effort to create a pocket park, a design that includes green elements as well as respects the views of Capitol Records. Strong volunteered mitigation measures that go above and beyond what the city has seen to ensure a positive working relationship between the construction and operation of our building and the echo chambers and recording studios at Capitol Records, and a project labor agreement with the building trades that will commit this project to union labor. With all of this, you will hear from speakers today that we also have unanimous support of both local neighborhood councils, both Hollywood United Neighborhood Council and Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council. This team met early on and multiple times with the Council District 13 Design Review Committee to get their input, make positive modifications, and finally received their support. Today, we have heard that Hollywood Heritage might be here with comments or concerns. We did meet with Hollywood Heritage very early on and did a site tour with them. At that time, they chose not to get involved in the project, and we have not heard from them since. So we will be interested to hear what they have to say today. It is important to note that the building is oriented on a north-south access and set back from adjacent buildings to allow Capitol Records to stand alone. The building is also designed to be LEED certified. Other local groups such as Hollywood Arts Council, the Argyle Civic Association, Hollywood Dell Civic Association, and many individuals that you will hear today have actively supported this project, including your own planning commission. Your packets have a copy of the many support letters we have received. I will now invite R.J. Comer to speak to the zone change and the appeals on this application. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Good afternoon, honorable council members. And my name is R.J. Comer. I'm a partner at Armbruster & Goldsmith. I represent the applicant Second Street Ventures. I'm going to try to get this within 3 minutes to address everything Mr. Whitaker said, but if I need a little extra time, I may ask for it. Because I'm going to focus on those issues. The zone change and the justifications for all that was done by City Planning Commission. The staff report is comprehensive on that, and I don't have really anything to add as to what CPC recommended. In particular, though, the CEQA issues are very important. An environmental impact report was prepared for this project and circulated, and comments were received. Some comments were received from EMI Capitol Records, but the issues that are raised before you today were not in those comments. There were other issues they were concerned about, including privacy and views, all of which were addressed. Noise and vibration was also addressed, and it was determined that there was a possibility of a significant unavoidable noise and vibration impact resulting from construction, and that was disclosed in the EIR. And the supplemental mitigation measures that we have negotiated with EMI since first hearing about this issue in December of last year are the most comprehensive, demanding, strictest, enforceable, unprecedented noise and vibration mitigation measures I have ever seen the City of Los Angeles ever impose next to any sensitive receptor, including sensitive receptors that are actually recognized in CEQA, such as schools, hospitals, elderly care facilities, senior daycare facilities, and so forth. I recently had a project in front of you which is right next to Casa Verde in Hollywood, a LEED Gold certified special needs 100% affordable housing project. And the noise and vibration construction mitigations for that project were almost exactly the same as the ones in the EIR. They didn't have all this supplemental stuff on it. These mitigation measures are extremely strict, and they reduce to almost nothing, but not nothing, the possibility of a significant unavoidable vibration impact on this project. The EIR was certified by the Deputy Advisory Agency. There was a notice given. The notice was sent out to the radius labeling, and there was no appeal. That being a final act, the EIR was certified. That EIR being certified and a statute of limitations having run against it, you now have in front of you an addendum which addresses all of the issues raised in the appeal, including the issue of whether these mitigation measures are sufficient to reduce the severity of those impacts and are responsive to those issues. In particular, one of the things that's raised by the letter that was sent in today was this idea of an above-ground alternative. An above-ground alternative is not feasible, nor would it reduce to less than significant levels the noise and vibration impacts that were suggested to you, because even an above-ground project would require site preparation, drilling of footings, and excavation of at least 10 feet to prepare the footings for the project, and it would create new impacts, shade and shadow impacts, and aesthetic impacts.
I really need you to conclude.
I will. Finally, there is a request that the city impose compensation as a mitigation measure. Economic impacts, such as they are perceived, may or may not occur. I'm not going to impugn the credibility of that claim, but the fact of the matter is perceived economic impacts are not environmental impacts under CEQA. There's no nexus for the city to require a compensation package. However, we will say that the mitigations before you today have been very stringently negotiated, and we are continuing to talk to EMI about a compensation package. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Questions?
I do have a question.
Just push it up. There you go.
In your experience and clients in the past, have you seen other economic mitigation packages?
No.
No.
The kinds of economic mitigation packages that are not atypical are for permanent impacts, not construction impacts, such as if you're building a railroad next to a home, sometimes the railroad will purchase an mitigation easement. It's simply a way of compensating the homes for now forever being next to a railroad yard. But generally, to require compensation directly to somebody who perceives an impact, there has to be a nexus. And in this project, there is no nexus.
Thank you. And Mr. Chair, if you don't mind, can I ask the planning department the same question
Yes.
while we're on this topic?
Yes, come on up, Linda.
Planning personnel, please.
Thank you.
Hold on, I have a question for you, so hang on. Come on up, Linda.
I'll take a stab on this one.
Sure,
Charlie
thank you.
Roush, Planning Department. To my knowledge, I've worked in the environmental review section for over 6 years. I've never seen a mitigation measure for economic impact. It's not a CEQA issue. The department is very careful in not including economic impacts in their environmental impact reports and has fought whenever people try to do that.
There are some other vehicles by which these mitigation economic impacts.
That is true. As far as we're concerned, it's an economic issue, not an environmental one.
Great. Thank you.
Right. Thank you, Mr. Roush. That was Charlie Roush. There was a point brought up about a master plan, and there's assertions from yourself and your representatives that you went out and had spoken to the various stakeholders throughout the project. How was that responded to, this whole assertion that by building this, the master plan won't be achieved? How was that recognized?
Well, thanks for asking that. We actually stopped our application process in order to respond to statements of interest and a request for proposals by the CRA to develop the whole block. There were two responders to that RFP, Second Street Ventures and the owners of the Capitol Record site, Argent. The CRA has never awarded that proposal and hasn't moved forward on that. In discussions with the neighborhood council, the neighbors, the building trades, and every one of the people we've discussed this project with, we have let them know the following, that our project does not preclude the development of the entire block. Certainly if Second Street Ventures is awarded the proposal, our project before you today works right into that proposal. The Argent proposal, certainly conceivably we could be a part of that, but they would probably want to build their own project. Their project, by the way, is a 6-to-1 FAR project, significantly more dense than the project that's before you or the project we proposed. But all of our stakeholders, all the people we talked about that process.
So your opinion is its compatibility does exist?
That's correct.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, folks. Let's go through the cards, and we'll ask the following to come on up. Just keep your eye on the clock. We'll give you 1 minute each. Les Brockman, Evan Gochner, Richard Slauson, and David Rand. Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. My name is Les Brockman, and I'm an independent music recording engineer. I've been fortunate to work in Capitol Studios on and off since the early 90s on various projects. I just wanted to give the committee an idea from a real-world point of view of what could happen. I've been hearing these people talk about this sort of thing. I commonly work on film and television scoring projects, which are very tightly scheduled, often have union musicians, orchestras sitting there. So suppose we're sitting there and suddenly we go, wait a minute, stop everything, there's a booming noise, or there's some kind of noise in the speakers or in the microphones. Then the management has to get on the phone and call somebody and say, wait a minute, can you stop the pile driver? Even if it took only 30 minutes to bring that to a close, our session would basically be a failure and would cause an economic impact on the composers and the production company that have booked this session. We love working at Capitol Studios, but, you know, just in terms of getting our work done under budget, the next time there's a project, we might have to say, where can we go that we wouldn't be interrupted?
Thank you, sir. Thank you much. Evan Gochner, Richard Slauson, and David Brandt. Please come on up.
Good afternoon, council members. My name is Evan Gochnar. I am the shop steward for the International Brotherhood of Electrical Workers, Local Union 45. We have represented the employees of Capitol Studios since its opening in 1956 for 52 years. I represent 14 full-time employees at Capitol Studios, and these employees represent a cumulative 176 years of service to Capitol Studios with an average tenure of 12 years of service. Individual members' employment at Capitol Studios is enduring, spanning up to 50 years of service for one newly retired member. IBEW Local 45 is concerned that the proposed construction will affect the work environment at Capitol Studios, resulting in work stoppage, delayed or interrupted sessions, and ultimately job loss for our members. Once clients of Capitol Studios begin circulating information about construction near the studios and work delays, they will take their business elsewhere. This is a direct threat to our esteemed membership and its 52-year relationship with Capitol Studios. Thank you for your attention and consideration.
Thank you, sir. Richard Slauson, David Brandt.
Good afternoon, Chairman Reyes and Councilmember Huizar. I'm Richard Slauson with the LA Orange County Building and Construction Trades Council. Our council represents 143,000 craft men and women working throughout the Los Angeles and Orange County area, thousands of which reside in the city of Los Angeles. We are here today to let you know that we have negotiated a project labor agreement with Second Street Ventures, with Mr. Jordan, and from our view, the Second Street Ventures company on this project has done everything possible to bring together the crews that will commit to the best possible construction to keep any issues to a minimum and to mitigate all of those construction issues that might arise during construction. We build hospitals where patients would be in jeopardy. We build schools where our children would be in jeopardy. We build bridges and roads and every other kind of facility that you can imagine, all with great care and concern about those surrounding the project and as well those that will use it eventually. We think that this has been put together in a fantastic way and fully support its continuation. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. David Brandt.
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, Councilman Huizar, Dave Rand, law firm Armbruster and Goldsmith, representing Second Street Ventures, the applicant. My colleague, Mr. Comer, responded to the appeal filed by EMI, but just for the record, I wanted to respond to the separate appeal filed by Mr. McQuiston. Mr. McQuiston raised the possibility of an earthquake and alleged a deficiency in the environmental impact report, but for the record, rest assured the environmental impact report prepared and certified for this project fully analyzes seismic issues. A geotechnical report was prepared, mitigation measures and recommendations were made. Those were approved by the Department of Building and Safety and incorporated into the environmental impact report. Further, the project will have to be built in compliance with the California Building Code, and the Department of Building and Safety will review all the plans prior to issuing permits to make sure that the project is safe and complies with all code requirements in terms of building and seismic issues. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next, Brian, I think it's Kehew, David Jordan, and R.J. Comer.
Hello, I'm Brian Kehew. I'm an independent recording engineer. I do a lot of my work for Warner Brothers Records, often in Capitol Studios. In fact, I have 2 months booked coming up to do a project for Warner Brothers. Our real argument is that
it's one company making a profit versus another. And I feel it's very much like when we work in Hollywood. They'll say, we'll film on your block, but we won't be any trouble. So oftentimes it is trouble, and it stops your work. And I think there should be some way to restrict it so that the working hours of Capital, which has been in business for many, many years, could be retained, and then the working hours outside those hours could be used by the other company to do their work. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, David Jordan and R.J. Comer.
I already spoke.
Okay.
And, Mr. Jordan is just here to listen to the rest of the community.
Okay. All right. Patty Larson, Sharon Romano, and David Schlesinger. Good afternoon, ma'am.
Good afternoon. I'm Patty Larson from Eagle Rock, Councilman, your constituent. For 27 years, I was with Angel Records, which was the classical label for Capitol Records. I did a lot of recording in those studios, made use of those wonderful chambers. We provided a place to record for internationally famous opera singers. We developed a career for young American artists. We did a lot of recording in there. We're very proud of what we did with the classical label. You hear most about the pop, but we did some very good things. In my letter to this committee, I will list a number of these so you'll be aware of what we did. What basically is our product is sound. Sitting here in this room, I don't know how many of you are aware of all the low frequencies that we're being bombarded with. And that is what is absolutely the enemy to recording. And construction will give that to us. And it'll go right through construction members on the building. It will be difficult to go ahead and do this, to do recording. Those low frequencies will hit the chambers. I'm very proud of what Capitol has done over the years. It is a cultural attribute to this city, and I just do not want to see it destroyed.
Thank you, Ms. Larson. Thank you very much. Okay, come on up. You just keep your eye on the clock that we can pace yourself there.
Sharon Romano. I was born and raised in Hollywood, have spent my life there for 19 years, lived a few blocks away from Capitol Records. I'm someone who certainly appreciates what an incredible icon this is. As you know the history of the Hollywood community over the last 4 decades, that we suffered through many difficulties, and now the community is just coming back. There are many major developments happening in our community, and this raises concerns on all of us stakeholders in the community about the impacts of such major developments. I'm here today supporting this project because for 3 years, Second Street Ventures has been working into the community, has impressed me that they intend to be a long-term stakeholder and share the community's concerns. One of the community's concerns is that the place of Hollywood have the industry of Hollywood within the community. So we are also concerned about protecting the industry of Hollywood and the interests of Capitol Records as a business. But as both attorneys said, all of these concerns are under mitigation right now with Council President Garcetti as well as Second Street Ventures and Capitol Records. And what I look forward to is all of these folks working out a positive solution, and I believe they will, because this has to be a win-win situation for the community.
Thank you, ma'am. Next speaker, come on up. Give us your name and address, please.
Good afternoon. I'm David Schlesinger.
Good afternoon.
I'm a member of the board of the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council. I'm chair of our Plum Committee. I'm an architect. I came here to support the action of the City Planning Commission. I attended one of their meetings on the subject. We, in our area, this building, as proposed, is within the area of the Hollywood United Council. And we have been most impressed with the cooperation and the care with which Second Street Ventures has promoted their project. Most of, in fact, all of the homeowners associations in the area that I know of have been very enthusiastic about it. We did propose a few changes. They were very cooperative and made them. This is not any of this something that you usually find.
Thank you, sir. Thank you for your promptness. Scott Campbell, Nicole Shanian. And Susan Savage, please come on up.
My name is Scott Campbell. I'm Vice President of Central Hollywood Neighborhood Council. We're just south of this site. Just wanted to let you know that in July of 2007, both our Planning Committee and the full board approved support of this project. The applicant's been very responsive to all of the community's needs. They've got a beautiful project. They're providing adequate parking, additional office space for Hollywood, additional housing in a manner respectful to the surrounding neighborhoods.
Thank you, sir. Please come on up, give us your name and address. Come on up.
I'm Nicole Shahanian. I'm here on behalf of the Hollywood Chamber of Commerce. While the board of the Chamber has not taken an official position on the proposed project, the Chamber would like to impress upon the members of this committee the importance of Capitol Records to the Hollywood community. Capitol Records remains as one of the last major music companies in Hollywood and continues to serve as a major employer and vital resource for Hollywood as well as the entire music industry. It's important that Capitol Records stays in Hollywood. The Chamber remains hopeful that the concerns of Capitol Records and its echo chambers can be addressed so as not to lose one of Hollywood's most treasured and historic businesses. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Hi, I'm Suzanne Savage. I live in Hollywood. From 1992, from 1999, I was the vice president of A&R administration for Arista Records in New York, which means that I booked recording studios and also paid the bills. And I want to come down the side of Capital EMI on this. I can attest to the financial impact they may suffer, because if I was an A&R administration person booking bands and looking for studios, I would definitely have reservations about Capital. I've booked many bands there, including Barry Manilow, with a lot of union musicians, and it's definitely a unique place, and it's a very historic and wonderful studio. But if I've got a budget and a deadline, then I would have to go and look for other places that were available and could serve my needs. And I want to second what Ms. Larson said. Record businesses are in the sound business, and that's just all there is to it. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Savage. We do have someone from the American Federation of Musicians at 817 Vine Street, but I guess they forgot to put their name. Oh, come on up. Okay. Then we have Patty, and it's NEGRI, and then Gary Alcook.
Good afternoon, Councilman. It's good to see you. Councilman Reyes Huizar, I saw you at the Almirante Awards. That was a great event. My name is John Acosta. I'm the administrator of the Electronic Media Department of Professional Musicians, Local 47, of the American Federation of Musicians, consisting of 100,000 members nationwide, representing 8,000 members in the Los Angeles area. I'm here today because our membership is deeply concerned and outraged to learn of the developer's plans to build this parking structure that may temporarily or possibly permanently shut down Capitol Studios. The fact that this committee would even consider to allow any development to encroach upon the legendary Capitol Studios is mind-boggling. It's bad enough that over the last few years, sound stages around the city have been shut down for economic reasons, but here we have a studio that's functioning at its peak, booked constantly, and one of the landmarks of music, not only in Los Angeles, but in the United States and around the world, under attack by a developer's unabated plans going unchecked by City Hall. Do you think that officials in London would allow Abbey Road Studios, legendary home of the Beatles, to be shut down? Absolutely not. I didn't ask you why. Why are we even considering this? This matter needs to be put to rest. The issue of destroying a historical landmark cannot move forward. And I thank you for your time, and I urge you on behalf of Local 47 members and their families, do not hurt our livelihood. Please save Capitol Studios and say no to this project.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Patty Negri. Hello, committee members. Thank you very much. I live in Hollywood, 6324 Ivorine. I am president of the Hollywood Dell Civic Association, and we represent about 1,000 homes between Cahuenga and Argyle directly above the project, and I am speaking for the developer, 46230 Yucca. Other people have talked about the project's benefits, and we agree with that, but I would like to use my time to talk about David Jordan and his team and how great they have been to our community. They've worked closely with us through the entire process. From the first time he presented information about his vision for the 6230 Yucca, we could tell that his team were committed to listening to the community and working to create a project that would complement Hollywood's landscape. For example, we originally did have a concern that there was a proposed billboard located at the top of the building. And after hearing this, David immediately took the idea off the table. He said that he wanted to be a good neighbor, and good neighbors listen to each other and work together to better the community. And that is what he is proposing with this project for a beautiful piece of architecture in Hollywood. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Our next speaker is Gary Cook and James Stemple.
Councilman, my name is Gary Cook with UA Plumbers Local 78 in Los Angeles.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. I'd like to make a point about construction. There has been a lot of talk about construction impacts to Capitol records. While all stakeholders have the right to express their concerns, I would like to make a very clear about this point. We know our jobs. We're expert craftsmen and take great pride in what we do. We understand how to build respectfully in careful manner while being on site throughout all aspects of the construction phase to assure a quality project while being sensitive to the surrounding properties. We suggest otherwise if you do not understand or appreciate the skill of our fellow workers.
Thank you, sir. James Temple, then Brian Curran, and then we'll have Maureen Droney.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm James Temple, composer, 2238 Malcolm. I'd like to say that Hollywood has long been established as the entertainment capital of the world. However, budget cutbacks and convenience of digital technology have forced the closure of a number of studios in the Los Angeles area, making live recording logistically more and more difficult. Home project studios are flourishing throughout the world, but the quality of sound available at Capitol, combined with the access to some of the finest musicians in the world, puts Hollywood in a league of its own and gives our community a distinct advantage. I'm a composer. I work in feature films, television, animation, documentaries, advertising, live performance, and I work at Capitol Studios exclusively. The sound I get there is unparalleled and quite simply irreplaceable. If the echo chambers are compromised, there will be no other alternatives. Condo projects come and go, but Capitol Studios is a true music legacy and a recording environment that stands unique throughout the world. I'd also like to reiterate Mr. Brockman's concerns about noise and the sensitivity involved. It's very, very sensitive recording. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, Brian Kern, Maureen Droney, and then we'll have Tina Choi.
My name is Brian Kern I'm representing Hollywood Heritage. Nice to see you, council members. We are wholeheartedly supporting EMI's appeal before the commission today because we believe that the site's significance lies not only in its architectural uniqueness, but also the site's the continued residency by the site's original occupant, as well as the continued use of the site for its original purpose. We feel that the Capitol Records complex is a piece of living history for Hollywood, and anything that would interrupt the production of music on the site would sever this relationship between its use and its history, and we feel this would be a major loss for Hollywood. We also object to the 16 stories that are on the building, which will block several sight lines from the 101 as well as Eastern Streets. So that's our stance. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. And I believe we don't have our timekeeper. Come on up. Our next speaker, Maureen Droney. We set the clock for 1 minute, please.
Hi, I'm Maureen Droney. I'm the Executive Director of the Producers and Engineers Wing of the National Academy of Recording Arts and Sciences, otherwise known as the Grammys. And I may have checked my form wrong because we're here to support EMI's appeal. The Producers and Engineers Wing itself is comprised of over 6,000 members, 1,800 of whom are based in Los Angeles. In addition, the Recording Academy's overall LA chapter has over 5,000 members. In the last few weeks, we've been hearing from many of them expressing support for Capitol Studios in this matter. Capitol has long been one of the busiest studios on the West Coast. Its studios are not replicable, either in terms of sound or, since they are large enough to accommodate full orchestras, in terms of size. They're just, I work with people whose livelihoods depend on sound, and they know that Capitol Records is really something special. The construction as proposed seems certain to disrupt the operation of those studios, perhaps even causing the studios to permanently close. Without the steps to mitigate the disruption of its business that this construction could cause, it's likely that the parking structure, as proposed, would have a significant impact on the recording studios
Thank you,
and
ma'am.
lead to the loss of a number of jobs in Los Angeles.
Thank you so much. Okay, our next speaker is Tina Choi. Let's set the clock for 1 minute, please. And that's, I'm sorry, Ms. Choi, this will cut off public comment, so no more cards. Okay.
I'm sorry, Mr. Chair, we have one person from the LA EDC who submitted a card, and I'm not sure if maybe got lost.
Oh. Okay, everyone submitted cards. I'm saying there's no more new cards.
Oh, okay.
Go ahead.
My apologies. Good afternoon, Mr. Chair and committee members. My name is Tina Choi, T. Choi & Associates, representing Capitol Records. I want to clarify a couple of points about these echo chambers. Number one, they are underground, they're buried, and because of that fact, that is why we have so many concerns about the subterranean parking design that's been proposed. At certain points of the location, the parking garage is within 19 feet of these buried chambers. Our acoustics engineer, I don't want to kind of use a colorful analogy, but he's attested that these echo chambers are so sensitive that if we had a bee that was actually trapped in the echo chambers, that bee buzzing, the wing vibration would actually cause an interruption on recording integrity. So I want to clarify, give you kind of an illustrative view of what these echo chambers are. Number two, the master plan that was proposed initially did not have this project with subterranean parking. It had above ground parking. So there is a difference on that project. The mitigation measures that the applicant mentioned is very complicated. We are still in good faith. We're negotiating with them on the mitigation measures, but here's the problem. They are so extensive and complicated that right now we're dealing with 2nd Street, but we don't know a month from now or 2 months from now if this property is sold, we will be dealing with a whole new entity and a new owner that we have no knowledge of who that might be. So that's a concern to us, yet we're still moving in good faith on negotiating these complicated mitigation measures. Compensation, usually compensation is for quality of life disturbances. In our case, this is our business interruption.
Thank you so much. Okay, we have Mike Buehler, Babette Olney, I believe, and then Bree Long.
Good afternoon, members of the committee. I would like to see my time to Laura Freeman, if possible.
No.
No? Okay. Oh, go ahead. I'm Mike Buehler, Director of Advocacy with the Los Angeles Conservancy. Unlike most historic buildings, certain views to the Capitol Records Tower are integral to its significance. Completed just a few years after the 101 freeway, the tower has come to symbolize Hollywood to thousands of motorists that pass nearby each day. Indeed, the HCM nomination last year for the tower specifically called out the views from the freeway as significant. Views from the 101 freeway have remained largely unobstructed for over 50 years, but could soon be obliterated by a series of proposed projects that, if approved, could incrementally, but steadily and certainly, envelop the Capitol Records Tower. While acknowledging that the proposed project will have permanent and unavoidable aesthetic impacts, the Planning Commission report concludes that these costs are, quote, nevertheless acceptable. By allowing such impacts now, so long as they are, quote, temporary, the city will undermine its ability to modify and mitigate future projects with similarly temporarily but cumulatively considerable aesthetic impacts. With each incremental loss of views to the Capitol Records Tower, this iconic landmark could be greatly diminished.
Thank you so much. Babette Olney and Bree Long.
Hello, good afternoon, councils.
Good afternoon.
My father was Edward Kidori, the late founding father of jazz.
Just give us your name and address one more time.
Okay, my address is 802 South Plymouth and Babette Ori.
Thank you.
My father, Edward Kidori, was one of the founding fathers of jazz. He came here in 1919. In the 1940s, 50s, and 60s, he was recording in Los Angeles. He came out of retirement. Nesui Erdogan recorded him in Capitol Records. It was a monumental feat for Mr. Erdogan because he had never really worked in a professional studio before. He'd had a little home studio originally. So this is a very important part of history. My father worked in Los Angeles from 1919 through 1966, and you so honored him upon his death, and I would be very sorely sad to see this historic building go and its sound quality, which is unparalleled. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Boy Long, and then we'll have Joan Lux.
Good afternoon, members of the Plum Committee, and thank you for the opportunity to speak today. My name is Bree Long, and I'm a member of the Hollywood United Neighborhood Council and co-chair of its Plum Committee. And on behalf of the Neighborhood Council, which represents over 20,000 stakeholders and the area, including the project, I'm here to voice our support for the 6230 Yucca Street project. In June of 2007, our board voted unanimously to support the development of the proposed project based on its pledge to restore vitality to the city center, an appealing aesthetic design and scale, and a willingness to adapt and adjust project guidelines based on the needs and the desires of the community. That said, based on knowing what the concerns are of the community, I do not believe personally that the community would stand in support of an alternative development that proposed a 30 to 45 foot above ground parking structure. I also want to comment specifically about the developer David Jordan and Second Street Ventures. David and his team have served as an exemplary model of the kind of developer we want charged with the daunting task of reinventing Hollywood. For more than a year, David has worked with us to make this project blend into the fabric of the Hollywood community. Development in Hollywood is inevitable. It's our responsibility to ensure that changes coming to Hollywood will strengthen and enhance the changing landscape, and we believe this project achieves that. Thank you.
Thank you.
My name is Joan Lux. I'm speaking as an individual. I just want to say that Capitol Records building, we all know, is an icon in Hollywood, which will be aesthetically compromised. The view from the hills down, and also the sound walls, sound vaults will be compromised, which impacts economically the jobs. The other thing that nobody has mentioned is the fact that to make adjustments, they need to meet 5 required findings. This is incompatible, is damaging to surrounding businesses. Any hardship imposed or claimed is self-imposed. It will set a precedent, and in order, it's inconsistent with the purpose of the general plan in that one developer cannot be given a special treatment that is otherwise denied by other property owners in the area. It is also inconsistent with the community plan. The height variance is uncalled for. It will completely destroy the ambiance of Capitol Records. Does not conform with the original master plan, and finally is inconsistent with the purpose of the, in order to, just one sentence. In order to approve a discretionary request, all 5 findings are required to be met. None are met. Thank you.
Thank you much. Joe Flateau, Frank Defoe, and Gilbert Anthony Smith. Come on up.
Thank you, council members. I'm Joel Flato. I head the West Coast operations of the Recording Industry Association of America. I wanted to note that this issue is not just of concern to EMI. My organization represents record companies nationally. All record labels and companies utilize the studios and their special ambiance and their artists. While this is a beloved cultural institution, it's a living, breathing entity and economic force. I believe LAEDC has found that the tower generates wages to the tune of $21 million. Also, the council has undertaken through LAEDC a separate study with the leadership of council members Gruhl and Perry that analyzed the devastation of piracy on the music industry, which was to the tune of $5.2 billion in counterfeit goods in LA County. The music community can ill afford for anything to happen to the tower that would affect not only culture but business. We urge this committee to examine all the ramifications and urge the parties to reach agreement before any further action is taken. Thank you very much.
Thank you, sir. Next speaker, please.
Hi, my name is Gilbert Smith, and I'm the Managing Director of the Ricardo Montalban Theater at 1615 North Vine Street. And I am here on behalf of EMI and Capitol Records to preserve their integrity to be able to produce what we have as a product of entertainment to the rest of the world. This is the base and root of our city, and why people call us the entertainment capital of the world. I have a live theater. We have the same sensitivities that they have with the echo chambers. I can hear in this room where it's been sirens after sirens, and the acoustics are horrible, obviously not designed by Capitol Records. I think that possibly the master plan at CRA, it was suggested that to be able to look at the entire neighborhood around Capitol Records. It should be re-evaluated and be able to protect those echo chambers. It's Argent's plan that has a green space around that area and not to go subterranean. I urgently support the EMI proposal to reevaluate. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Right under the wire. Great. Frank Defoe? You pass? Okay. Mark Waters and David Benson?
My name is Mark Waters. I live in Chatsworth. I'm a 5-time Emmy Award-winning composer, arranger, and conductor, and I'm here today to urge you to halt plans for this project in its current state. I've had the pleasure of working at Capitol Studios numerous times, and I owe much of my success to this great facility. Much has been said today about the historical significance of this important landmark. I mean, sure, Frank Sinatra recorded Luck Be a Lady in this studio. Nat King Cole recorded Route 66 and Unforgettable in this building. But I want to stress that Capitol Studios is not an aging relic living on its gloried past. It is a state-of-the-art functioning studio and busy all the time. I think that it's obvious from what you've heard today that the music industry in this city needs Capitol Studios to remain open without interruption. A forced closure, even temporary, would be devastating to the entire music community. And I'll just close by saying much has been said about the skill and craftsmanship of the people that are going to build this building. I'm sure that's true. But I think just use your common sense to know that you can't build that next to a studio and not hear it.
Thank you, sir. Thank you very much. David Benson. I have Doris Richmond Cooper.
Good afternoon, council members. David Benson, an independent music producer working and living in Los Angeles for approximately 25 years. I thought it was ironic, Mr. Chairman, that you started your remarks today commenting on the acoustics of this room, in fact, and that it's not always easy to hear. If we just take 5 seconds to maybe listen to the silence in the room. And you notice that it's not very silent. Certainly, a lot of music has been made in Capitol Records, and one of the important things about music that many people don't realize is it's not just the notes that are played and recorded in these studios, but also the silence between the notes is a very, very important point. If we don't have these echo chambers to enhance that silence, then our music is not as magical and rich and enjoyed around the world. So I urge the council, please, to listen to EMI and don't let this very important tool for our industry be lost to this development. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Good afternoon, council members. Hi, my name is Doris Richmond Cooper. I live at 8324 Skyline Drive. The difficulty between business developments and artistic is very complicated. I'm a singer. I have had the honor of working in Capitol Records for years. I just did 4 sessions there this last year. I also, as a youth, had the opportunity through my mentor, Nelson Riddle, to see Frank Sinatra live record there with a full orchestra. It is truly one of the great treasures that we have in this city, and it is so important that we maintain the purity of the sound of that recording studio, that I am begging you to please at least work on it so that it gets alleviated, that there are no problems with regard to this. It's really, really important. There are very, very few places not in our country that have this kind of sound.
Thank you, Ms. Cooper. Thank you very much. Dan Folliant and Gregory Freeman.
Chairman Reyes, I heard you speak eloquently a few months ago about the Lummis House, and I'm here talking about another historic structure that's very important to the city. I'm the president of the Society of Composers and Lyricists, and we represent over 1,000 composers who write music for television and film. And Capitol Studios is beyond any doubt at the very top of the list of where we want to go and record. And I'm also very concerned as a citizen about retaining the historic fabric of this great city. Capitol Studios is beyond a questionable doubt the heart and soul of music recording in the city of Los Angeles. And as symbolic as the historic Welton Beckett design structure is to the city of Hollywood and its image throughout the world, no less significant is the sound that has reverberated through these walls. To compromise the creative components that add to the richness of this overall product would be ill-advised. I urge you to do what is necessary to keep the integrity of these chambers and this studios.
Thank you, Mr. Follian. We have Gregory Freeman, and then Nyla Arslanian.
Good afternoon. My name is Greg Freeman. I run the consulting practice for the LA EDC. We do economic impact studies looking at various projects so that policymakers like yourselves can have full information when they make important decisions. We looked at the economic impact of the studio's closure, should that happen. We measured 3 different types of activity and measured their impact on not the studio itself, but rather on the economy of Los Angeles. We measured both the studio operations, direct and indirect, using standard economic impact models. The studios support approximately 96 full-time equivalent jobs in the Los Angeles area. Spending from out-of-town artists support a further 12 jobs, although I would note that we use conservative spending assumptions, and to the extent that these folks do spend like rock stars, the impact would be dramatically higher than that. The most important impact that I would highlight for Southern California is the fact that people come here, they use these studios, and they employ session musicians and singers because this is a union shop. They pay union rates. It creates a full-time equivalent of 139 jobs for these folks. That's important because we're measuring work, not people. It's actually dramatic. It's quite a few more than that. The other point I would note is that those 139 people earn an average of $125,000 per year because it's union rates. This is often the best paid work that they do.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome.
Thank you very much. Nyla. Hi. And then we have Lisa Carlin. Then our last speaker will be Callie Bernard, the district representative.
Good afternoon, Council Member. Thank you very much. My name is Nyla Arslanian. I'm president of the Hollywood Arts Council. And I'm here speaking in favor of the project, like many of the community representatives that have come forward this afternoon. The Hollywood Arts Council has been very impressed with the diligence that the developer has taken in working with the community and alleviating our concerns about the development, which we all had, about the sight lines for the Capitol Records, the exterior of their development. And we are in a difficult position. The Hollywood Arts Council's mission is to promote, nurture, and support the arts in Hollywood, and we stand behind our artists and never really want to be in a position where we are compromised in that stand. We have been watching very closely the media attention on this, and it's unfortunate that the issue of the echo chambers and the wonderful studios A and B of Capitol Records somehow has been meshed. It was never our understanding that that was also a problem, and we're looking forward to these two parties coming together and have faith that that will indeed occur. Thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. Lisa Carlin, and then we'll have Callie Bernard. Hi.
Good afternoon, Chairman. I'm Lisa Carlin from Sorrell Associates on behalf of the applicant, Second Street Ventures. I just wanted to reiterate that the applicant is proceeding in good faith to respond to EMI's concerns, and that Second Street Ventures has and continues to try to accommodate reasonable requests, but it is important to consider the following: that there's no evidence that there will be any physical damage to the echo chambers. There's substantial evidence and expert testimony that shows there will be no physical damage. There's also no evidence of operational impact to the echo chambers. There's substantial evidence and expert testimony that shows this, and additional supplemental mitigation measures to further ensure that there are no operational impacts. The echo chambers are located 3.5 to 6 feet below EMI's own surface parking lot. The proposed project's parking structure is 19.5 feet from the nearest echo chamber and approximately 35 feet from the furthest echo chamber. This is about balancing equities. Projects need the right to construct provided that every feasible measure is imposed to reduce impacts to the neighbors. This has been done here with the mitigation measures that are before you. To turn over supervision of a construction project to a neighbor is unprecedented in this city.
Thank you, ma'am. Thank you. Okay, Ms. Bernard, District 13.
Hi, Kelly Bernard, Council District 13, Director of Planning and Economic Development. This project has been going on for more than 3 years, and as the developer has mentioned, or his representative mentioned, this was part of a larger master plan by CRA Hollywood. They did send out an RFP looking to master plan. The CRA has not made any decisions about what they're going to do with the master plan. I have spoken with them recently, and they still don't have a timeline for this. However, and so once this project started, we were very clear with everyone that we didn't think these projects would be mutually exclusive. To have a development at 2nd Street as being proposed, or that's being proposed, there was a second respondent to the RFP. We thought the two would not be mutually responsive if indeed CRA decided to move forward with their master plan. So I did want to address that. Following the CPC hearing, the council office have been working very closely with both 2nd Street and Capitol Records and EMI to kind of reach, in the hopes of reaching a compromise. The council office has worked for years with Capitol Records on a number of different issues, to recognizing their importance to not just Hollywood but to the entertainment industry, and we remain committed to Capitol Records, and they are remaining in Hollywood uninterrupted, and so we do support them. But following several meetings, we were, sound experts were brought in, vibration experts were brought in. We had both sides do additional testing. 2nd Street was amenable to that. We did the testing. I have met with more technical consultants than I would have ever thought, and I know more about vibration than I really want to know.
So have a good sound system in your house, right?
And so it's just, and we came up with we are asking, one, to sustain the CPC's decision in the zone change and the height district change. As for the environmental, we have worked very closely with both sides to come up with an additional supplemental mitigations, and we think they do respond to the concerns raised by Capitol Records to help mitigate any potential concern, both during construction and during operations. I have a list of these 28 supplemental mitigations we will submit for the records. Some of these, I believe, may be finalized. I mean, we're talking up until the moment we walked into the chambers, and so they may be changed. But in the end, we believe that the mitigations that we have been working with both sides to negotiate does address the concerns of Capitol Records, EMI, and does attempt to protect the echo chambers and the studios. We don't have any comments on the economic compensation, as they do not pertain to there's no nexus between that and the CEQA. And so we will remain silent on that issue that the parties are trying to work out aside from that. But our concern has been on the environmental and coming up with mitigations for that, and we think we have addressed those things.
Okay. So the range of mitigation measures that you have submitted for the committee, for the most part, addresses those matters that have arisen after the commission.
After the CPC. There were some that were brought up during the CPC, and we tried to address during that hearing, but we recognize that the hearing did not, the CPC hearing did not adequately address the concerns raised by EMI and Capitol Records at the hearing, and so for the past several months we have been meeting with both sides separately and jointly to kind of craft these additional mitigations to allow more time for additional testing from the experts on both sides, and based on their expert testimony, both on the construction side and operationals, we believe these mitigations address the concerns that have been raised.
So given the array of stakeholders that have been involved in the process for 3 years,
the stakeholder support of this project is very long and very deep. Hollywood is in the midst of a resurgence and a renaissance, and we have the privilege to work with a lot of developers, and we try to balance out the concerns raised by the community and often the developers. But this is an example of a project that did go out very early and often to the community, listen to their concerns, and were very responsive to those. And so we believe that the decision should stand by the CPC.
Ms. Bernard and Councilmember, given the level of mitigation that's here and amount of time spent on this case, it's over almost 3 years, it just seems to me that every effort is being made to maintain the historical and the various issues that have been arisen. So I would move that we support the CPC decision, deny the appeals, but add the additional mitigations that have been identified by your office in your work with the different parties.
Yes.
Do you have a second on that? You have a question? Okay.
Just so the committee will know, we also receive additional findings for which I'm not aware if the planning department has had a chance for CEQA. And if the planning can come up and make a comment as to if you want to adopt those findings, they're on the desk.
Before we go there, Councilmember Huizar does have a few questions.
I just, are any of the experts on vibration here today? Okay, because I know the applicant has an expert. How about Capital? Did Capital have an expert? Okay, and I know you've probably gone through this a number of times in the Planning Commission, but you fundamentally disagree on whether there will be disruption or not, or do you?
Would you like to come on up to the microphone, please,
Yes.
sir? Give us your name and address.
Councilman Michael Graham from the Planning Department. A suggestion is you may want to deny in part and grant in part the appeal, since you did modify some conditions that the Commission did consider. This is a point of clarification.
Before we take that step, I'd like to get the Councilmember Huizar's question answered, then we'll go there. Coming up, sir. You have a question, Councilmember Huizar.
You are the appellant's expert, correct?
Yes. No, excuse me. Appellant's here. I'm
for Capital.
EMI.
For Capital. EMI.
Yes.
And I know you've probably gone over this at other forums, but briefly, what are your findings? Will there be interruptions for the chambers?
It depends.
It depends.
Yes.
Okay, on what?
It depends on how the construction is being carried out. It depends on the operations of the garage during the commissioning of the garage after construction, and depending on the design. Depends on a lot of things.
Okay. And there's mitigations that have been presented, some before, some today. Would those mitigations suffice?
We have not seen everything, but during constructions, the proposed mitigations, if implemented properly, it can mitigate this situation, yes, if all the conditions are met.
If all the conditions are met. Okay, thank you. What about the applicant? Can I ask you the same questions?
Hi, I'm James Nelson with Wilson Ehrig and Associates.
Yeah.
Your question
Obviously,
again?
what are your conclusions on the effect on the chambers and ability to record and vibrations?
My conclusion is that the operational noise of the garage will not impact the operation of the echo chamber. And the main reason is the greater distance between the garage operation.
Is that conclusion before or after the mitigations that have been proposed?
This is before.
Before, but there's been some mitigations that have been proposed.
Yes.
That will, so in your opinion, those mitigations are not necessary?
My opinion is that the mitigation for operational noise reduction is not necessary.
Okay, but they are being done.
But they are being done, that's correct. And that mitigation measure was 2 inches of closed cell neoprene foam.
Okay, because one of the articles says that some have proposed that it will be impossible to record quality music at Capitol. Do you agree or disagree with that statement?
Could you repeat the...
That it will be impossible to do quality recording at Capitol Records.
I would disagree with that statement.
Yeah. And the appellant's expert has mentioned that with mitigations, it's possible that we could allow quality recording to go forward, correct?
I'm sorry, would you repeat this?
Earlier you said that the mitigations are sufficient.
Well, we were talking about two phases. We have to be careful about that. We're talking about construction phase and operational phase. What Mr. Nelson was talking about was operational phase, and he indicated it's impossible. We'd never say impossible. There's always the possibility does exist. It's pretty strong, frankly. We are talking about the mitigation. I was talking about that can work the way it was proposed, and depending on how it's going to get implemented, was during the construction. However, having said that, we also propose mitigations for operations, and this is what Mr. Nelson was talking about. And I cannot say, in all honesty, it's impossible, but it's probably improbable if we implement these mitigations.
Okay. And on the operations, Capital has a parking lot, correct? Or a garage?
Yes, they do.
Pardon me?
Yes, they do.
Is it a parking lot or a surface parking lot?
It's a surface parking lot.
Does that create vibrations?
Pardon?
Does that create vibrations? No. Huh?
Well, we ran studies in there, and depending, of course, if you run a truck back and forth on top of it, this is what we experimented. Yes, you will get an impact. However, the way it is being done right now, the speeds are running at the infrequent level of operations, we did some statistical analysis, statistical measurements, and we proved to our own satisfaction that these present operations do not impact it.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you very much. And my final question, Mr. Chair, is on height. I was looking for a photo of what this would look like in terms of its impact on the view for the Capitol building. Do the applicants have any such images?
Well, we have a model, a three-dimensional model we can bring up and you can look at it.
Okay, but you didn't bring that today?
Yeah, we did. We have it in the
You
back.
did? And it's in the back?
Yeah.
Okay. Can I see that briefly, please? If it's not too much trouble.
Glad we got a chance to use it.
Yeah. So this is, if you could this is the Capitol building today, and that's the proposed building there.
That's correct.
And it's an accurate model in terms of height here?
Yes, it was made by our architects. It is to scale.
Okay. And so the views that will be blocked are from the east looking west, correct?
There is one significant view that would be blocked. It is one space proceeding northbound on the 101, and the building was designed specifically to preserve key views, such as the most important view, that being from Hollywood and Vine, the most important intersection in the entire world. You'll be able to see the Capitol Records building from that important intersection, even when we're built. But there is one space on the 101 freeway. If you stop, you won't see it. But if you keep moving, you will.
Okay. And were the views discussed in the environmental document?
Yes. In fact, there were view simulations in the environmental document, which are replicated on this board, if you'd like me to bring them up.
No, that's okay. And how many mitigating factors were in the environmental document for views?
The number of mitigations, I don't know.
But there were a number?
The view to the Capitol Records was disclosed in the IR as significant and unavoidable because of that one freeway view. But the very orientation of the building itself was oriented to minimize those view impacts.
I see. And in terms of the FAR, how much more are we going than what's permitted in this area?
I don't remember the answer to that question. FAR?
Charlie Roush, Planning Department staff. The current FAR and the delimitations is 3-to-1. The request is a zone change and height district change to raise that to 4.5-to-1, which is consistent with the community plan.
And that's consistent with the community plan?
Yes, it is. The community plan allows you to go up actually to 6-to-1 in the area if certain things have been done by the redevelopment agency, because you're 4.5 by right.
Okay. Thank you. That concludes my questions, and we'll wait for the chair to come back, but in order for us to take a vote.
Member, just so that I can have it for the record, I understand that they're proposing additional conditions and findings, and I wanted to address this question to the city attorney, just so that we'd have the answers, if the conditions impact the zone and height district, or if there are conditions for other entitlements.
One item that you have to do as part of this, there is an addendum to the environmental impact report, which is provided in your packets, and you do have to adopt that addendum to the EIR, which includes the additional mitigation measures to reduce noise impacts beyond what they were originally listed.
And Mr. Chair, I asked a number of questions, and I'm satisfied to second your motion with a clarification from the Planning Department. Certainly, one of the things that I value in this city is to...
excuse me, Councilman.
Excuse me, can I finish? Can I finish and then I'll allow you to finish? Thank you very much. One of the things that I value in this city is protecting our historic buildings, and here, although there is no direct modification to the Capitol building, I hold of high esteem protecting the views or any other impacts it may have. But it seems to me that the environmental document has mitigated to the full extent all possibilities to protect the ability to not only operate and maintain its current use at the Capitol building, but also to protect its views.
And I appreciate the questions. It reflects how we're trying to get to the essence of some of these issues. But we do have an extensive number of mitigations that have been added after the commission in hopes to address the concerns that have been raised after the commission process, and we still got from this period to the council as well, so we can refine that even more. So my understanding of the language would be that we grant in part and deny in part. Would that be accurate, Madam Attorney? Yes. And with the addition of the additional mitigation language that's been
What we
submitted.
have before you now in terms of, besides your decision of granting and denying in part, are additional conditions which may impact the ordinance in the matters in council next week, so we may need additional time. But also we have findings, so you can grant in part, deny in part, subject to approval of conditions as modified. And I don't know how you want to address the findings, because I haven't heard any ruling on that yet.
Yeah, I was just going to point out, when you adopt the addendum, those are additional mitigation measures, and you have to add those to the Q conditions to the zone change, and that'll make it...
Okay, and that would be part of our findings. And
So would it be possible to get the applicant to give us an additional week in view of the fact that the planning department would have to do this almost overnight?
If the applicant, are you amenable to another week so that the staff can put together the necessary language?
We'd be happy to.
Okay.
Okay, then the matter will be in council on July the 8th.
I'm sorry.
Okay, what is required in this matter is that the applicant give us written consent for the continuance so that this can happen in an accurate manner and that planning department has sufficient time to
So
prepare
let's
the
be very
documents.
clear. The discretion here is for the applicant to allow us one more week, and that's all we're asking for. The applicant's representative has stated they will give us one more week for the additional language, and that will be the action. So we will deny in part, grant in part, with all the language necessary to meet the specifics of this process. That will be the action of this committee. Second? Yes. Okay. So that concludes A and B. Anybody here for public comment? Seeing none, this meeting is adjourned.